April 29, 1945. The war in Europe was drawing to its final violent weeks. The Allied advance had already broken through Germany's western defenses, and American forces were pushing deep into Bavaria. Among them was the U.S. 7th Army's 45th Infantry Division, a battle-hardened unit that had fought its way from Sicily to France, and now approached a place whose name few yet recognized, Dachau. At first, reports reaching the division spoke only of a prison camp. Soldiers expected to find enemy troops or political detainees, but as they neared the outskirts of the small Bavarian town, the atmosphere changed. A foul, sweet stench hung over the area, the unmistakable smell of death. When the gates of the camp came into view, so did the truth. A train of more than 30 boxcars stood motionless on the siding outside the main entrance. The soldiers pried open the doors, expecting prisoners. Instead, they found horror beyond comprehension. Inside were the bodies of thousands of men, women, and children, packed so tightly that they appeared as a single mass of limbs and faces. Most had starved to death or been shot during the evacuation transports from other camps. Some were so emaciated they looked like skeletons wrapped in parchment. The sight broke even the most battle-hardened men. Soldiers vomited, wept, or turned away. Others stood frozen, unable to comprehend what human beings could do to one another. When American troops entered the camp itself, they found chaos and misery on a scale that defied imagination. Thousands of prisoners, Poles, Russians, Jews, political dissidents, and clergy, stumbled from the barracks, dazed and trembling. Many could no longer speak or walk. Typhus, dysentery, and starvation had reduced them to hollow-eyed survivors, their bodies marked by years of abuse. The camp's commandant, Martin Weiss, and most of his officers had already fled, leaving behind a handful of SS guards. Some manned the towers and fired sporadically as the Americans approached, but resistance collapsed quickly. Once the guards surrendered, the soldiers began to take stock of what they had entered. The deeper they went, the worse it became. Piles of naked corpses, rooms filled with ashes, and storage buildings overflowing with personal belongings stripped from the dead. At that moment, the liberators' shock turned to rage. Witnesses later described the scene as a breakdown of all discipline and control. American soldiers gathered several captured SS guards in a coal yard near a guard tower. What followed was brief and violent. Machine guns opened fire, cutting down dozens of men where they stood. Others were executed in smaller groups. Some soldiers refused to participate, turning away in silence. Others watched without comment, unable to object. Meanwhile, the prisoners themselves, men and women who had endured years of starvation, beatings, and humiliation, seized the chance to exact revenge. Thus, they chased down guards, capos, and collaborators, beating them with fists, shovels, and anything they could find. Several SS men were beaten to death within minutes. One witness recalled seeing a prisoner stomp on a guard's face until he no longer moved. The violence was spontaneous, fueled by grief and fury that had been suppressed for years. In the confusion that followed, a few SS men tried to escape by changing into civilian clothing or stealing prisoners' uniforms. Most were recognized almost immediately. Many were executed on sight by soldiers or by the liberated inmates. Over the next several hours, the camp was secured and medical teams arrived. American doctors and nurses began treating the sick, though many of the liberated prisoners were too far gone to survive. Typhus outbreaks continued for weeks, claiming hundreds more lives even after liberation. In the days that followed, U.S. military officials ordered the citizens of the nearby town of Dachau to enter the camp. The intent was clear, to force them to confront the reality of what had happened in their midst. Men and women from the town were made to walk through the barracks, the crematoria, and the piles of corpses. They were ordered to help bury the dead. Some fainted, others wept. Many claimed ignorance, insisting they had known nothing of the atrocities. Whether true or not, their faces showed a collective reckoning with guilt and denial. The U.S. Army later conducted an inquiry into the killings of the SS guards. Estimates of the number executed vary, but most historians place it between 30 and 50. Although official reports acknowledged that some guards were killed after surrendering, no soldier was ever prosecuted. General George S. Patton, then military governor of Bavaria, reviewed the case and dismissed all charges, declaring the matter closed. The Dachau massacre, as it came to be known, remains one of the most controversial episodes of the war's final days. Some see it as an understandable eruption of fury in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Others view it as a violation of the laws of war. Either way, it serves as a haunting reflection of what happens when human beings are pushed beyond the limits of endurance. Between 1933 and 1945, more than 200,000 people were imprisoned at Dachau. Around 42,000 of them died by execution, starvation, disease, or medical experimentation. The camp became a model for the entire Nazi concentration camp system, where millions would later perish. When U.S. troops raised the American flag over Dachau, it symbolized liberation, but also left behind questions that still linger. What does justice mean after such evil? Can vengeance ever be separated from moral outrage? For the survivors, liberation was both an ending and a beginning. They were free but scarred beyond repair. For the liberators, Dachau was a wound that never fully healed, a reminder that even victory in war carries its own ghosts. The story of Dachau is not only a tale of suffering and revenge, but a warning carved into history. It shows how hatred dehumanizes both victim and oppressor, and how even in the moment of liberation, humanity itself stands on a knife's edge between compassion and retribution.